Welcome everybody to the Eternal Spoiler Breakdown. My name is Pojo. We're going to be going over all of the cards that have been spoiled since my last YouTube video. I hope it's possible we'll miss some, but we'll catch them again when we do card breakdowns for Fall of Argenport. So yeah, we're just going to talk over cards, talk about what's good in Draft or Limited, or what's good in Ranked or Limited. I make that mistake a lot, and see exactly how we feel about each of these cards. The first up is Lethral Secretweaver, an Elf Explorer. Good combination of tribes. I'm digging it. For 3, that is a 3/3 that says pay 4 and discard a spell to draw 2 cards at double blue. This card could be pretty solid overall. It's definitely good in a draft format. You feel really good in any sort of limited format because this card turns any spell into a slightly expensive Wisdom of the Elders, and that kind of card advantage is actually really reasonable. It doesn't exhaust in doing so, so it doesn't cost you on board position. As a 3 for a 3/3, that's really a reasonable stat line in limited, so you feel pretty good about this. And yeah, like overall, just an infinite source of card advantage could be really solid. Spells are always useful, so it's going to be sometimes hard to actually sacrifice your spells to draw those cards. There are ways this card cannot work for you in quite as fun an advantage engine as you want it to, but as a straight uncommon, this is a pretty good pick most of the time, and it gives you a good reason to sort of basically put power into blue and sort of put a primary focus on blue, which I don't think happens very much in the current draft environment. So yeah, this card's really reasonable and seems fairly good overall. I would say that it's relatively high in limited, but in ranked it's a little bit tougher to run. It's just a little too easy to kill. You certainly can get advantage out of it, and it's like certainly not bad to have something that allows you to draw that kind of stuff, but paying 4 to draw 2 cards off of a spell is maybe not all that great. So yeah, we will probably not see too much of that in ranked. I'm hopeful, I would say. There is the possibility that this card lives and you are using lots of backlashes and things to protect it, and you have a more creature-based engine, which could be really fun for control. I really do hope that this card does well in ranked, but I'm not sure if it's there. It's really going to depend on the overall meta. Could be okay. Alright, so we're going to be moving up through a wide variety of cards. I think the way that I've currently got them organized, it's probably going to be better if I just lead from the top of my list, and that's going to be in random order for the most part. We had 2 spoiled on the Eternal Esperanto Discord, so 2 in Spanish, so we're going to read these off and talk about what they do. The first is Sheriff Marley. Now Sheriff Marley reads, and I'm going to have to look real close at this card just to make sure that I get it right. Aegis, 4/4 for 4 at double green. Once per turn, you can pay 3 to draw yourself an assistant, which is a steadfast deputy, a 1/1 with Aegis for 1, and you create and draw that unit. The tribute on this card is that you get to silence an enemy unit, so at the very least this card is a 4/4 with Aegis for 4 that tributes to silence a unit, which is really pretty good for value. I'd actually say that this card probably sees some play in ranked just for that level of value combined with the Aegis ability. Being able to stack various Aegis units in green can actually be really beneficial. We've very rarely had a critical mass of good Aegis units, but this combined with Silverwing Familiar and Crownwatch Paladin really gets a fairly good green weapons base going, and you've also got cards like Copperhall Elite and a couple of other cards at like 3 or 4 that might be fairly okay in this sort of setup. So yeah, I think Sheriff Marley might enable that kind of more defensive style, and that's going to be really interesting all on her own. The power sync that she gives, where she creates steadfast deputies, is like not really the most important thing to do with your time, but in a limited format it's actually quite strong. You can just pick up more and more units. Those units are very, very good with weapons, and you feel pretty good about the sheriff's deputies being just there for you whenever you need them. The one thing about this card that I do think should be changed, maybe not immediately, but at some point, Steadfast Deputy should at some point become a gunslinger, because right now Steadfast Deputy is a 1/1 soldier, and I don't know if it makes sense for Sheriff Marley to be making soldiers. So yeah, would be nice if she had some more gunslinger synergy going on there, and you could do some better gunslinger ally type effects with Sheriff Marley in general. I'd be pretty down with that. Could be cool to change the art on Deputy and sort of change up the card a little bit. But overall, I think this card's a really, really strong limited card, and for ranked, probably going to see a little bit of play. Not outright the best 4 in green, but it's pretty good, actually. Yeah. All right, we got Birthright. More cards showing Caleb and Eileen fighting. This is an important scene, obviously, so we're going to get a couple of different angles of it and various timelines. Long Live the Queen shows the first one, where Caleb is sort of aiming. Then you see Caleb again in End of the Barrel. In Birthright, he's actually fighting Eileen on the throne, so he somehow made his way up. And in End of Days, the fight ends as Talir joins the fray. In any case, Birthright is a 6-cost relic for 1 red influence, and at the start of each player's turn, they play the top card of their deck. So this is not an outright advantage for you, obviously. It's actually negative card advantage, which is something you always have to pay attention to. But what it does allow you to do is cheat out bigger units in situations where you might not otherwise be able to do so, and to cheat out very, very expensive and scary spells. So you can get some pretty good results out of Birthright if you are playing like a kind of weird Invoke the Waystone style deck where you're trying to get more of your own Lava Blood and what's the name of the card? Great Kiln Titans out, or you're just trying to play like really stupidly expensive cards like Aid of the Huru, which can be kind of insanely nuts early on. Birthright is a card that definitely only belongs in some sort of ranked combo list. You never play it in draft, obviously, even if you get it. I mean, you could try. It'd be kind of fun. But overall, it's just sort of designed for if you can actually keep control of the board, if you know that you have, like, a ton of cards that are going to be well worth it, and you have the way to get Birthright out quickly without too badly damaging your overall deck, then Birthright's going to feel okay. It's obviously good if you get a new tomorrow, right? Like, other players are going to be playing power, you're going to be playing non-power cards. Yeah, anyways, Birthright is certainly not a strong card, but it's a great Johnny legendary, and I love it. It's fun. Alright, we got 2 weird colorless cards, and they're both amazing. The first is Momentum Builder. This took me a second to realize why this card wasn't completely broken, but it is a 4-cost 0/10 Reckless that whenever it attacks, it gets +3, -1. So, at the 9th attack, this card is a 27/1, I believe? And in the first couple of attacks, it's really quite ridiculous. It becomes a 3/9, and then a 6/8, and then a 9/7. Those are all real good stat lines. Even a 12/6 doesn't feel all that bad, although at that point it might probably be trading with something. Here's the thing about Momentum Builder. It has 0 attack, which means it cannot attack unless you find some way to enable it. And that's the important rule to remember to make sure that this card isn't broken in half. You need to put some sort of daggers on it. You need to put some sort of weapon on it to really get it to work. And that'll increase the momentum that Momentum Builder is building, which certainly makes it much more annoying. The other thing that's fun about Momentum Builder is that it cannot be killed by Annihilate or Rindra's Choice. And it can't be killed by Vanquish either for a very good portion of the early game. So this card is actually fairly hard to deal with and has a lot of stats against burn and kind of turns into a monster at some point and is really fun with Berserk. And like, man, I think this is pretty powerful for a 4-drop in colorless. Like, this is insane for a colorless card. But like, I don't know if it's, I think it probably plays in ranked decks. That's weird to me, but yeah, no, it probably sees a little bit of play. You gotta build a deck around it, you gotta make the best things happen with it, but like, it's a huge pile of stats, it's fairly hard to kill, and like, overall, it seems like it's going to trade pretty well with most of your other stuff. So if you have good ways to make Momentum Builder get across, in particular, I think this card plays insanely well with Accelerated Evolution, with Shard of the Spire, with Stand Together, and a couple of other things like that. Like, basically anything that incidentally affects Momentum Builder's momentum. The best one is probably Ornamental Daggers. That's just a really easy one to throw on a Momentum Builder and not really feel like you've wasted a card. Then yeah, this card kind of gets there. But yeah, like, it does have the obvious drawback. You do have to build around it. And a Momentum Builder deck is a really fun Timmy deck, so this card is... Yeah, I haven't seen a lot of good Timmy cards lately, but this one is awesome. Gosh, big, stupid machine. It's also an engine. I love engine as a creature type. There's only one other engine. If you know what it is, go ahead and shout it down in the comments. It's another one of my favorite cards. It's very dumb. All right. So, here we go. We've got, and I'll give a shout out to the first Twitch person who knows what it is too. Yeah, you got it. Organic chicken. Well done. Okay, the other colorless card that we want to talk about is Recon Tower. Recon Tower is a 2-cost that says once per turn you may pay 3 to draw a power card from your deck. At the third time that you do this, you get to transform it into a Guard Tower. And the Guard Tower is another 2-cost relic that says once per turn you may pay 5 to deal 1 damage to an enemy. So, alright, first things first, pay 5 to deal 1 damage to an enemy. Not that great even if you have a lot of power. This is some way to sort of influence the board in control matchups, but you generally have to have control of the board already. It's pretty fun if you are playing like a shadow deck with the last word, and you are just making your stuff deadly and then using Guard Tower to ping for a bit more, but probably if you have the last word out, you're already winning the game. So like there's some potential there to actually do things like that and do weird shenanigans. The main thing that's actually good about Recon Tower is its ability to play in sort of weird control decks. I actually think this card is fairly strong for temporal distortion type shenanigans because it consistently gets you power in a way that you fairly well like. It costs about as much as, it's a little bit more expensive than a Find the Way, but the power is undepleted, so that's not too bad of a deal. And you actually get to play that power out anyways. And it's a little bit more value than Find the Way in terms of what it is that you draw. So, yeah, good stuff. Like, I would say that this is a slow as heck card, and you gotta have a lot of support for it, but if you're playing it in control, it is a 3-for-1, so seems reasonable if you can do that. It's just way, way slow, so you gotta make sure that it works. In draft, this card is actually very strong. It actually plays pretty well in draft. You get to fix your power, so you get to whatever your big things are, and you get to kill small things, which is always useful. Dealing 1 damage over and over again can be very beneficial. I would say that this card is a pretty fun draft rare, something that you can definitely pick up for your slower control archetypes, and anything that supports slow control archetypes in draft is great. I really like it when you can build those types of decks and when tempo decks aren't the law of the land in those types of setups. So yeah, that's the colorless cards that we've seen so far. Okay, moving on down, we got Kyrex Coach Driver. This one says, Inspire, units you draw have Deadly, and Summon Nightfall. Also, it is a Gunslinger Dinosaur, which... We've waited so long for this moment. Yeah, no, this is actually... Okay, so 4 cost 3/3, not that great. Inspire is really pretty good, but you do have to actually get the Inspire. The Summon Nightfall ability is fairly alright. I would say this card is really, really strong in draft and limited formats. Getting deadly units in ranked is really not all that much different than just getting units. Most of the time, your units are going to be good enough to actually trade with other things, and you can do good stuff there. Did I say ramp? I am correct in I am incorrect in saying ramp. It is the card that draws power, so you can consistently get there in control. It's not actual ramp. Kyrex Coach Driver is like, there needs to be more Gunslinger Dinosaurs in general. This one's kind of lame for our first Gunslinger Dinosaur because it's more of a support card, but what the heck, it's still kind of fun. I kind of wish it had Deadly itself. All of the Inspire units kind of feel like they should have the skill that they inspire, but that's okay. Like, I'd say overall this card is reasonably strong in limited formats, and that's good enough, and I'm very happy that there are Gunslinger Dinosaurs out there in general. Oh, looks like I got a low-res image of that as well. The Reddits. Alright, another one spoiled on... Oh, wait, no, let's go... We're going down in order, so I guess we're going to cover one of the newest spoilers. Lustrous Wisp, a 1-cost deadly unit with 2 abilities that give it a tremendous amount of value if you can trigger both. So, Infiltrate and Deadly work at cross purposes with each other, and that's an interesting thing with the design of these cards, where they are very highly complicated, and getting both of their benefits is really, really cool. Infiltrate and Deadly work pretty well together because one of them forces blocks and sort of forces your opponent to create tributes, whereas the other one is just something that like capitalizes on you losing Infiltrate. So there's this sort of play pattern arising with a lot of Infiltrate deadly cards where you attack in with Infiltrate units, your opponent has to kill them or block them or do something about them, and then you tribute later on, and you feel pretty good about that. And Lustrous Wisp is nice because it has deadly, so it's going to trade with whatever it is that it blocks unless you actually get your Infiltrate. The Infiltrate is to reduce the cost of each Radiant in your hand by 1. I like Radiant reduction. I like the Wisp Radiant thing that we're doing. This is a Wisp that kind of benefits a lot of the other interesting Umbran strategies that we've seen so far, including the Umbran that brings back Wisps, and cards like the Mitotic Wisp, which reduces the cost of Umbran as well. At some point we might even be able to play World Joiner. Man, wouldn't that be exciting? Yeah, so a 1/1 Deadly is essentially just a Direfang Spider, and this card has 2 upsides, so it's strictly better than Direfang Spider in 2 different ways. I'd say that's enough for it to see some play in Ranked. It's clearly very strong in Draft as a draft rare bomb. Like this card, you may not play it too much with Radiance, but the Tribute is nice, and the Deadly ability is nice, and it's just like something that you definitely want in your deck. It's not necessarily a bomb. I would walk that back a little bit because it doesn't win the game on its own, but it's a lot of stats, it's a scary 1/1, and it trades with everything. So yeah, sure, this card's crazy. Yeah, fun stuff. Is World Joiner a new card? FS Forward Sound asks. No, World Joiner is from Omens of the Past. It is a 9-cost 8/8, 9-cost 9/9 that whenever it attacks gives everything -1/-1, and then gives itself +1/+1 for each thing that it gives -1/-1. It's goofy and weird and very expensive. Okay, next up, Ruination Sledge. We have one more spoiler in the Reddit, I hear, so we'll talk about that as well. But Ruination Sledge is a 3/1 weapon. Already good stats. Like this is okay for a weapon in general. We don't have a weapon with these stats yet, and it's very aggressive. So I can actually see this seeing play in Ranked just off of that stat line. It's not great, obviously, because lack of health is pretty ugly, but the overall just aggression of it makes it pretty nice, and you could maybe play it in an Eternal Basics Pauper list. It might be one of like the commons that we swap in as we experiment with that list in Fall of Argenport, but we'll see. Regardless, the Spellcraft 3 is Play Ruin, which means that we can kill a relic or a relic weapon with this. That makes this a fun top deck. I don't think you ever hold Ruination Sledge to play the Ruin. You mostly play it as a super aggressive card, but this is a card that gives your aggressive deck some way to kill Ruins, and I'm alright with that. I'd say overall it does have reasonable strength in Draft. Like, it's a good card to put on a flyer. You're very, very happy with this card overall just because of its ability to turn a flyer into a beat stick. And then the Ruin ability means that you sometimes don't lose card advantage off of it, and you can also smash your opponent's Ruination Sledges or whatever other weapons they're running. So that seems pretty good in Limited as well. I'd say overall this card is just, a solid B on either side. It's not going to be amazing in Ranked most of the time, but the red decks that want it, and it's aggressive enough to actually see play in those. Alright. It's basically a situation where you don't want Ornate Katana because you are already flush on Aegis units, is where Ruination Sledge is really good, or where you're just so straight aggressive that you don't care. Another one spoiled on the Eternal ESP Discord is this guy, and I'm going to have to look even closer at him to make sure that I have all of this right, because this is actually a lot of text. Okay, once per turn, you can pay 2 to draw 2 cards and discard 1 card. So sort of a quarry-based effect, except you don't get the cost reduction. If you do this 3 times, you sacrifice the Flying Brewer, I believe he's called, or the Winged Brewer, and you get 3 Vampire Bats, which are 1/1 flying lifesteal units. He's a 3-cost 0/1, he is a cultist, and he costs 1 shadow. And I hope I said all of that right. And his name is Winged Brewer, but it might be something else in English, we're not really sure. So, yeah, like, overall this card is difficult, but probably okay on the strong side. You play him, you pay for his quarry ability at 5, and then your opponent kills it with a spell. That's 2 for 1 card advantage. And you also got to look at your deck and get a decent card out of your hand. So, overall, seems pretty reasonable. If you actually get to play his ability 3 times, not only have you drawn 3 cards, you've also made 3 kind of beneficial units, and maybe those trigger some life force abilities or do some interesting things. Like, yeah, this card is easy to kill, this card is easy to silence, this card is easy to trade with in all sorts of weird ways, so it's definitely going to be a hard one to build around, but the card advantage is there. It's definitely a powerful kind of control engine, and yeah, I can see it being played with a couple of other interesting cards. You could even play this in a Colony Matron deck. How goofy would that be? It's another thing to do at 5 in Colony Matron. You can also play this card with some weird stuff like Chalice and get other things going on. I don't know that that's necessarily going to happen, but yeah, the card belongs in some specific spaces. It's a draft bomb in any sort of limited format. Like, this card is just harder to kill in limited, and it is well worth it in terms of card advantage. You're super happy to get this legendary in a sealed or in a draft. I think you actually feel really, really good about it. So yeah, no, seems pretty cool. That's a lot of fun in draft too. Like, that just seems like a really fun play pattern. Okay, there's one more. I haven't seen this card yet, so people have been saying that it's a very good one and that it's particularly suited to me, unless I already saw it. And there's the inferiority complex. Ah, the end is near. There's already a card called End of Days, so we're going to go ahead and... Man, can I save this before... No, I'm going to have to take a look at it before I actually... Okay, I know it's Shadow, but I'm saving it. That's a web page. Let's try this one more time. So we're going to try not to look at this card. I saw the number 10. And then we're going to just open this up. And... the end is near. Okay, I saw it all. 5 cost. Discard the top 10 power cards from your deck. Okay, reverse new tomorrow, huh? That's adorable. Let me... It's a Doomsayer in Argenport. Alright. Okay, so overall strength of this card is pretty simple. If you're playing straight... I'd say the deck that you probably most want to play it in is Fire, Shadow aggro decks, where you are just playing Champion of Chaos, you're playing Bandit Queen, you're playing Vicious Highwaymen, and you're playing Argenport Instigators and Grenadins and maybe Haunting Screams and other shenanigans. You're playing Gorgon Fanatics, weird stuff like that. Then you play The End is Near, you never draw power again, and gosh, that's good. Like, you feel really good about using this in a Scream deck or any sort of deck where basically your power caps at 5 anyways. In those situations, I'd say it's probably a one of. There's probably not that many other reasons to go ahead and discard 10 power cards. You probably don't want multiple copies of this card, but nonetheless, like, that's sort of the idea behind the card. It is negative card advantage. It does cost 5 to use, so you have to get that value back in the late game, which means that you're looking for a deck that both caps out at 5 and also a deck that is happy to, in some way, discard the top 10 power cards of your deck. I'll tell you another place where this card belongs. It belongs in warp decks. If you're trying to build the ultimate warp combo, playing The End is Near will get rid of a bunch of the cards that are most difficult to warp, even with like a Waystone Infuser. So you could potentially do that and get yourself into a situation where you just have 5 Workshop Forges or 4 Workshop Forges, and you're playing your entire deck, and shenanigans occur. You can use this to play power off of particular ramp cards. The one that I'm thinking of is that 2 cost that plays the 2, I believe it's called... I've lost it, but yeah, there is a card that allows you to dig for buried treasure and get yourself 2 power and play that 2 power. I don't know if that's going to be particularly strong, but it's okay. And yeah, this obviously excavates for Stonescar Excavator, the 4-cost relic that pays 3 to deal damage to somebody. Forgotten Find his name of that double time card. Thank you, Darkest Tempest from the Twitch chat. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting shenanigans there. It's got some potential. I would say that the card is obviously not strong, but it's a cute Johnny Build Around Me puzzle, and that's good enough. You don't play this in draft ever. Well, actually, would this be strong in draft? This might be okay in draft. Like, you would be, because you'd only get 1 of them, and then you'd play just like you'd never draw power again. I actually kind of like this card in draft, actually. You have to, like, basically toss all of your power away for the rest of the game, but if your power caps at 5, this seems like a perfectly reasonable one of. So yeah, like, you would cost yourself 1 card advantage and some tempo, but you would never draw bad cards again, and your opponent would eventually run out of cards on his own. So this could provide you with pseudo card advantage in draft. Could be a fun draft rare overall. People are pointing out, as with all singletons, this card is fun in the market. You can pick this card up out of the market with a marketer and then only have to run, well, you never have to run any copies of The End is Near, is the main thing, and you can just pick one of them. And that means that you don't have to clutter your deck with this, and you can use the marketers to grab other things when you need to, which makes The End is Near a higher level power card that you might actually see a bit more often in tier 2 decks, tier 3 decks. I still am not 100% certain that you can find it in tier 1 decks, but these types of shenanigans are all available, and there's the possibility that you can do other things as well. The one thing that's going to be scary about The End is Near is that sometimes you're going to be hard countered by your opponent just sitting on a Dream Snatcher, just waiting and praying, hoping and dreaming. So that's something to keep in mind when you're playing it in a ranked deck. It's a cool puzzle. It's clearly something that there's a lot of different solutions for. I love the design of this card. It's really quite interesting. And the other thing that's really nice about it is that from a lore perspective, like, this is a cool card for Fall of Argenport in specific, because we're basically talking about a situation of turmoil in Argenport. And the conclusion, I guess, it could be a continuing thing of what's been going on in Argenport for the last 4 sets. And, you know, when we started Eternal, we had this sort of brilliant idea of Eternal's Argenport, which is expressed in A New Tomorrow, where, like, basically anything is possible, and the city has all of its hopes and dreams in front of it. And now you have this card, which is the inverse of that, and shows the Doomsayers and the potential future of Argenport as a finished city. So that's a sad note to end on, but I think it's a good note to end on. And overall, I'm pretty happy with this card in terms of design, in terms of lore, and in terms of power level. So good card all around. So seems pretty cool. All right, that's it for the spoiler breakdown for tonight, guys. For both YouTube and Twitch folks, I am calling it a night. So thank you all so much for watching. Feel free to like or subscribe to the channel if you want to watch more videos and stuff like that. And we will be back tomorrow with more Twitch stuff. We will be trying to post up as much YouTube stuff as we can, and we have some basics videos that I am currently working very hard on to get up over the 4th of July week. Hopefully there will be 4 of them. So look forward to those. I also might have some lazy lore videos up in the middle, depending on how much I like them. So that's it. Thank you guys. See you next time.